Hey, good afternoon. Welcome to the TCPalm editorial board meeting to interview candidates in the Sebastian election. I'm Larry Reisman, columnist and community editor, and I'm joined by fellow editorial board members Adam Neal, Gil Smart, and Louise Philippine this afternoon to talk to the candidates in Sebastian. Special thanks to our candidates for meeting with us today and streamlining this process by completing questionnaires ahead of time. Board members have reviewed them. One candidate in the Sebastian race, Jim Hill, declined the invitation. Questionnaires sent in can be found at tcpalm.com/elections, along with other stories, videos, and information about the November election. At the conclusion of this interview, editorial board members will discuss possibly writing an editorial board to write an editorial recommending a candidate in this race. I'll lead the questioning and open it up to other editorial board members at the end. If time permits, we might also ask questions posed by our social media audience. We've got several questions for you today, and we might end up having more of a conversation than just a simple Q&A. Our goal is to be completed in 45 minutes to an hour. Because of our time constraints, we ask that you keep your questions concise, and we'll give you an opportunity to summarize anything or bring things up at the end that we might have missed. We'll start the questioning with Dianna. Give one example of what you have done in the past year that proves you're doing more than just talk about helping the Indian River Lagoon.
What I've done in the past year, I am from Sebastian, grew up here, but I went away, got my education elsewhere. You've got my bio. Went away to school and did mortgage banking, real estate development, real estate, lived in 3 other countries, and then ultimately got my captain's license. I recently moved back to Sebastian 2 years ago and expected to settle down and pretty much have a semi-retired life in my nice, peaceful hometown. And I realized that there were some issues, and it's a beautiful city. I love it. I'm planning to die here. A lot of my family has retired here and settled here. But I noticed that there were some issues as far as pollution goes, and water quality issues and stormwater quality issues. And as a result, I've been got involved with the speaking up before different groups. I spoke up before the Exchange Club about water quality issues because I've been working on water quality issues all over the state of Florida to do with Lake Okeechobee, the Florida Keys, the west coast of Florida. We were in which is where I moved directly here from. I was basically moved away from a very toxic situation where the algae blooms had taken over and there were no safeguards done. It got so bad there that we had massive die-offs, an 18-month state of emergency. Our governor had declared a state of emergency. It was hard to breathe and all the sea life was dying. So that really motivated me to speed up my plan to move back to Sebastian. And when I moved back here, I saw what was happening and wanted to explain that we don't want to do what they've done over there. We want to learn from those mistakes. We want to do the right thing so that moving forward, it's a lot easier to take precautions and to learn our lessons from what mistakes are being happening elsewhere, and not having to wait until the pollution gets so bad that we have massive die-offs. So when I saw what was going on here with, for example, the spraying, I knew that number one we had to do was to stop the spraying. The water quality, there's several issues which I've taken on, and the number one is stopping the spraying. Ed Dodd has been very supportive on that issue. He understands more than most of the people in City Hall about the fact that we do need our living shorelines for biofilters, and that if we spray, we kill our wildlife. We also kill our algae eaters. We don't want to see algae taking over everything. We don't want to create extra dead zones. So number one is we need to stop the spraying. So what we did was after speaking several times before the city council and also getting involved with some local environmental groups, sitting on 2 boards of directors here, working on these pollution and toxic issues, we have, on November the 20th, we got a moratorium to stop the spraying in Sebastian, which is great. Now what we need to do is get that on a permanent basis. We also need to get our stormwater, enforce our stormwater laws that say that we have to not allow toxins to go into our stormwater system, which we were doing. So we stopped doing that, we stopped the spraying, and we also need to look at our sewer hookups in the red zone, the low-lying areas. We are working on that as well, getting the sewer hookups in place where the land is so low that it's actually seeping into our water supply.
Thank you, Diana. Ed, just to read it, I'm going to ask the question again. We'll go with on this. Can you give one example of what you have done in the past year that proves you're doing more than just talk about helping the Indian River Lagoon?
Okay, actually, I've got to go back to probably 2018, and I was the person on the council who advocated best management practices for clean up stormwater canals and other drains, and to first to discontinue as much as possible, and ultimately to eliminate the use of chemicals like glyphosate. And that went through a really tight learning curve. In the spring of this year, I worked with the city manager and created, first of all, we had 2 workshops that I proposed at the council related to that. And then I worked with the city manager to create a committee consisting of members of our Natural Resources Board, representatives from the University of Florida, and then Graham Cox, who was a local citizen advocate, and who was a member of the Pelican Island Audubon Society and some other organizations, to create a best management practices, pest management. It's called a pest management manual or pest management process. They've been through that for the parks. We're going to begin. COVID-19 kind of kicked us in the rear as it came to completing that. The parks version of that is going to be presented to the council in October, and we're going to begin working on the part of that that practices manual in hopefully by the end of this year for the stormwater system. I do support not using the harmful chemicals such as glyphosate, but I support that from a best management practices perspective. I think that we've created some real issues for ourselves by just arbitrarily passing a moratorium to all spraying, which is what was done. The moratorium didn't say quit using glyphosate, it said quit spraying, period. And we've got some pretty intensive problems right now with some of our stormwater ditches that we're gonna have to deal with, but that'll take place. The health of the lagoon will be greatly improved by that. I also dramatically support a full city of Sebastian conversion from septic tanks to sewer. That's going to require that we spend a lot of time working through problems and issues with the county government, but I believe we can do that over time.
Thanks, Ed. I appreciate that. Bill, can you give me one example?
Yes.
Maybe give me one example of what you've done in the past year that proves you're doing more than just talk about helping the lagoon?
On the Planning and Zoning Commission, I have been for quite some time. And this year, we've had 5 different meetings trying to wrap up the comprehensive plan for 2040, which has been put together, spearheaded by Lisa. And the Sebastian Police Department, we've sort of disbanded the volunteers for the last few months because of the epidemic. And that's about it. I'm retired. I've got some other things that I have done other than the planning and zoning. Like I say, the volunteer group has sort of disbanded for about 3 months because of it. And I watched a lot of council meetings. That's pretty much about it.
Thanks, Bill. Hey, Ed, we'll go back to you and start with you on this, but you talked about the spraying and some of the stuff that's going to come up, the manual and everything. Do you have a sense yet of what the best solution is to keep waterways free from the glyphosate and things like that to control the aquatic weeds?
We found some additional products that work really well. One of those is a product called Whack Out Weeds. It's a peppermint oil-based product. We've done some. Our city manager, through our city leisure services staff, has done some pretty good extensive testing on that, both in an aquatic and in a non-aquatic environment. Actually, in a non-aquatic environment, it works as well as Roundup does. In the aquatic environment, it kills. It works well on some of the weeds, in particular, that we're having problems with at Hardy Park and the canal system that connects to Hardy Park north of 512. We're going to have to go through a combination of manual removal, which is a lot more expensive, and then also selective spraying if we can find the appropriate products that'll do that. Maybe some biologicals where we're talking about introducing some individual plants that prohibit the growth of the bad stuff, or possibly inducing some types of insects that eat certain plants. All of those things are being looked at and being put on the table. Our objective is to not spray non-selective, harmful to human chemicals, and to do that using a best management practice based on the type of pest we're dealing with. It might have one thing that you do for lemongrass, or one thing you do for crabgrass, one thing you do for certain types of aquatic grasses, and you have to use a combination of all of those to do it correctly.
Thanks, Ed. Bill, is there anything else that you would like to add to that conversation?
No, I think Ed's got it pretty well, hands around it. I have nothing else really to add to that, other than the fact that the other problems we've got in addition to that happens to be a drainage problem, which has been obvious over a couple of times when we've had downpours of 3 to 5 inches in a couple of hours. We need, I think, to enhance the cleaning and cutting the weeds in some of the major ditches. We also have some culverts that are jammed up, and this is under the streets and not under some of the driveways. Obviously, the problem with the canals, and I think we need to address that issue, and probably the sooner the better. I realize you sort of have to prioritize the issues. You can't do them all at once. Some of them take much longer. What Ed was talking about, than other problems. I think what we're saying is the difficult we do right away, and the impossible just takes a little longer. Anyhow, so that's about it.
Okay, thank you. Dianna, do you have any specifics in terms of trying to keep the weeds under control?
Yes. Lately, what we did is we did get a weed-eater in to do a demonstration, which is a weed harvester, aquatic weed harvester. First of all, what we need to do is change our culture to think everything green in the water is bad. It's not. What we need we do need our weeds. We do need our aquatic vegetation, because it prevents, it creates a balance of nature to where we can then have our natural weed eaters in there, our fish. We're a big fishing community. So what we want is our fish to be healthy. There's nothing wrong with having weeds in the waterway at all. Where we came up with this culture in the past 20 years where we should kill everything, I don't know. But actually, we do need them. The plants are our friends. They give us oxygen. They clean the water. It's the most efficient way to clean water there is. We can put microfilters in. We can try to clean the pollution after the fact. But really, our plants are the most valuable resource that we have as far as cleaning the water goes. With the weed harvester, if we go in once a year and we clean, we had a weed harvester that can go around and look at all of, like do it in a route where you start at one end, by the time you get to the other end, it's already grown up again. We harvest those weeds out. It's a way of capturing the nitrogen. So when we pull the nitrogen out of the water, that also takes out a lot of the pollutants. We've got some legacy pollutants that have been there that are building up for years because of the fact that we've been spraying for so long. Spraying is a cheap alternative. It's causing health issues for us and our wildlife. So first of all, we need to change our culture. We need to realize that aquatic plants are good for us. They're good for our nature. They're good for the reasons why we live here. So this weed harvester that we've experimented with is good. The word is that it's too expensive to use, but it isn't, because I believe we can get grant funding to pay for the weed harvester, and we can also get training on that weed harvester as part of the purchase price, and we can give those jobs to our local people. There's more and more people looking for jobs. We need to try to keep those jobs here in our community.
Thanks, Dianna. We'll go with Bill for the next question. Given the challenges of past efforts to reduce the city of stormwater problems, how can you ensure planning and execution of a stormwater plan will be beneficial for the residents of Sebastian?
Well, whatever we do, I think is better than what we have done. Part of the problem is the fact that the ditches, as they have been cleaned, mostly what they've done is whack down all the grass and the weeds, and the banana trees fall over into the ditch, which compounds it. And so all you've done is accumulated more items in the ditch than you helped by just actually cutting the weeds. As far as the stormwater is concerned, I think it won't be as big a problem if we can maintain the drainage system that we should have and need in order for the drainage to occur. I think if we do that, we'll be 2 steps ahead of where we are now.
Thank you. Dianna?
Yes, I have some very personal knowledge and experience with our stormwater system. Right near where I live, like for example, on the corner of Breakwater and George Street, there's a choke point where 3 different blocks, city blocks, feed into one little culvert area. And everything flows nicely. People are taking care of their lots. The city's actually doing a decent job. Periodically, they come through and clear the empty lots so that all the water flows well downstream. There is one choke point, however, between an empty lot and the stormwater canal, which I've been observing for 2 years. I've called the city about it, asked them to please mow it. They won't do it. They say, and then another neighbor called recently and was told, oh, well, we want to do something about it, but they won't allow us to spray. Well, spraying it isn't going to solve the problem because you still have the debris falling into it, as Bill mentioned. So what we really need to do is that vegetation has to be removed, and it has to be periodically maintained. There's nothing wrong with that, to come in with a weed eater. I've even had somebody from Stormwater come by and chat with me about why it wasn't necessary. And the time that he chatted with me, we could have actually weed eated it and cleared it out, but it can't just be cut and left to lay in the ditch. It has to be cleared out. As Bill says, banana trees, whatever fall in. So, I mean, this is simple, 20 years ago, we didn't have a problem with this. All of a sudden now we have a problem unless we spray. So spraying isn't going to solve the problem. Plus, if you do try to remove it once it's been sprayed, now you're poisoning your hands. You've got those toxins on your hands. So I looked at the property that I'm talking about, this one little choke point, which chokes up, and that's why we had flooding on George Street when we had that heavy rain a couple weeks ago. All they have to do is come in once or twice a year, at least. They've done nothing for the past year and a half on that one spot, which then blocks up the whole 3 blocks. And I know that that's not an isolated incident. I know it's going on elsewhere in the city. What I'd like to see them do is just do what was done when I Google Earth my street view of 4 years ago. It was beautifully maintained. It was mowed. And so somehow 4 years ago and 3 years ago, even 2 years ago, it was able to be maintained, and now all of a sudden it's not. and it wasn't sprayed, it was cut. And so, I mean, it doesn't have to be done all the time, once a month, but at least twice a year. If we clean up those choke points and we utilize our staff correctly and have them going around in a routine, in a route, just like mowing a lawn. Your lawn needs mowing. What do? Do you spray it? No, you mow it. So, and then you remove any extra branches. I feel kind of funny even saying this because it seems pretty basic.
Thanks, Dianna. Ed, any thoughts on, I guess going back to the question was, given the, some of the challenges of past stormwater efforts, how can you ensure that planning and execution of a stormwater plan will be beneficial for the residents of Sebastian?
Okay, the real issue with stormwater drainage is it's got really nothing to do with spraying. I agree 100% with what Dianna just said about the spraying issue. It's got a lot to do with about 30 years worth of bad management on the system. It was not built correctly by General Properties. It hasn't been maintained correctly by the city for all these years. Last year, there was a determination made that jumping from hotspot to hotspot isn't solving anything. So the city manager at the direction of the council began a move to try to find funds for us to do an actual valid stormwater plan. The city's nearly never had a stormwater plan. The stormwater plan that was in effect under our prior city manager was really nothing more than a document that said what a stormwater plan should have in it. It wasn't really a plan. We found $800,000 in grant money. We matched that with $200,000 worth of city funds, and we're in the process right now of going out with an RFP to award the contract to have an engineering firm come in and actually produce a valid stormwater plan. What that will do, first of all, is provide us with elevations. We'll know exactly where the water has to flow. In the case of the choke point that was mentioned, I agree that needs to be better maintained, and we need to begin that process of trying to do that, but we have to finish that overall plan first, because right now we don't know what damage we're doing to other parts of the city to fix one part of the city. I can tell you examples where we've gone into neighborhoods and cleaned out driveway culverts and resloped swales in front of houses, and the next big rain came along, the flood was still there because we didn't actually impact the problem point in that drainage system, or part of the drainage system. So when we produce this actual stormwater plan, we're going to be in a better position to actually go forward. I also have had concerns and have expressed those to the city manager about our current vendor for cutting these ditches. They needed to be cut better. In fact, I just got a letter today that was sent from the vendor that kind of went over the fact that he's had 10 employees catch COVID, and he's had one die from it. And he's having a real problem getting his staff done, and he's trying to catch up. That doesn't excuse the fact that he hasn't done the cutting he needs to do, but it is something we have to understand. So we're trying to make a concentrated effort to get back into the cutting process that we need to clear out some of those ditches, and they do need to be cleared, not just cut. You can't just cut the vegetation in a drainage ditch like that. You have to actually pull it out, because if you just cut it, it ultimately will create a dam that will create additional stormwater problems. So the stormwater plan is going to be highly beneficial when it's finished.
Thanks, Ed. We'll go with Dianna on this first question. This next question: many people move to and love Sebastian because of its small town feel. In light of proposed developments and annexations, please explain how the city should keep that feeling, or is that impossible?
No, it's not impossible. I've been a big part of other cities growing, and that kept their character and also kept their value. Attracting the kind of people that we are. We're friendly, good people here, and we are peace-loving people, and we're nature-loving people, and that's the kind of people we want to attract. So no, I think we can keep that small town feel. I think one thing that we really need to do, and this is totally new to introduce this, it's not something I've spoken about before, is we need a city planner. We need to hire somebody to come in. I've been part of other towns where we've done this. And when we're at this stage where we're going to be on the map, we're getting more in demand here. Sebastian's a beautiful place. We're all trying to keep it secret. It's not so much of a secret anymore. We want to make sure that it's growing in the right way. And it would be well worth it for us to hire a town planner instead of allowing things to go in this haphazard manner, because it can run away from us. There are some very good town planners out there. We could hire them on a consultancy basis. For example, one by the name of Dianna came into Naples, Florida, and helped us there get a better design for the town. And so it really, it could have gone one way or the other, but with a good design and a heart, we need a soul for the city. And there isn't one. We are the soul of the city. Nature is the soul of our city, but we need a physical soul, a physical center to our town. So that's one big proposal I would do is we need that. We need somebody to come in as a consultant and sit down, look at our city and go, here's your plan, here's your structure, here's your bones.
Okay, thank you, Dianna. Ed?
Well, first, we have a city planner. We actually have a planning staff that does that. We're in the process of updating a comprehensive plan at this point in time. It really doesn't, if you want to know the truth to the feel of the city of Sebastian, it doesn't matter if the property along 510, for example, is developed into 15 gated communities with 2,000 houses each, that's within the county, or if it's developed within the city of Sebastian. The impact of that growth is going to hit the city of Sebastian, whether the city has anything to do with it or not. And so I just don't think that the feel of the city is going to be impacted. Sebastian has grown quite a bit in the last 20 years. I haven't seen any difference. I've lived here for almost 20 years now. And quite frankly, I can't find any different restaurants. I can't find any different stores, and I can't find any impact on the riverfront. Riverview Park is still the same. The people seem to be still the same. And in the last 20 years, the city has gone from where it was then to the largest populated city in the county. I don't think we're going to impact that feel of the city. But we do have to be fully cognizant of the fact that if south of our borders, we end up with an additional 30,000 people that are within developments produced by the county, and if we end up with what the county wants, which is a truck route running from 60 up the finished 82nd Avenue through Lacona, where we have trucks going up Lacona Street off of 82nd Avenue, that is going to be detrimental to the city, and that the city needs to be in a better position to have some say on that and to have some control over that. I don't think it's going to impact our city. I'm really not concerned, if you want to know the truth, about changing the feel of Sebastian. I just don't think it's going to happen. I don't think we're going to have that type of growth here.
Thanks, Ed. Bill, any thoughts on the feel of Sebastian as growth occurs?
Oh, okay. I didn't hear you call my name. I assumed I was going to be next. And I wanted to say something to go back a moment of what the last year. I have participated in Meals on Wheels, and I'm retired, so I guess that counts. At any rate, I think Sebastian does have a unique character, and partly, I think, because we have so many access points into our neighborhood, which cuts down on a lot of the traffic, and hopefully some of the new developments, would also not be a cookie cutter, so to speak, in a gated community with like one entrance, as opposed, which makes in and out difficult, which is for the gated communities. Anyhow, I think the charm of the city is the ease of movement into our neighborhoods, again, our pocket parks and so forth. And hopefully these issues will be somewhat addressed with the completion of the comp plan, which is scheduled, I think, to go before council next month in October. So
thanks, Bill. We'll go with, we'll start with Ed on this one. which talks about future annexations, not maybe just the one you've looked at, but other ones as well. What metrics will you use to determine what future annexations are in the best interest of the taxpayers of the city?
Okay, first let me just say this. I'm not in favor of the city actually processing a future annexation until we've worked an interlocal agreement with the county. I think that's something that was dropped in I don't know, when was it, 2004, 2005, some time frame when the county was going through their spat about trying to become a charter county, and there was an interlocal agreement being produced between particularly between Fellsmere and Sebastian in the county. But I think we need to restart that process, and we need to work an interlocal agreement with the county. In particular, we need to talk about the land that is adjacent to County Road 510, which is the parcels of land that are in dispute or have been in dispute between that. I know there are some business owners and landowners down there who are still very interested in coming into Sebastian, but I think we need to work out that process with the county first. As far as criteria is concerned, when we deal with an annexation, we have to deal with that annexation as it relates to our comp plan and our land development code. One of the big problems with this last Grace Brothers annexation that people seem to miss was that we had not finalized the future land use map on that annexation, and we had plenty of opportunity in dealing with that future land use map to put restrictions on what we were going to allow within that property. Our land development code, it needs some work, and when we do redo after we finish the comp plan, we're gonna have to redo the land development code in part to meet the new comp plan. But whatever our land development code authorizes is going to be the benchmark for any annexation we do. And the comp plan is going to be pretty as it's currently being written, is actually going to be pushing things like workforce housing and things like that. That's actually the definition that I gave of that 1,100 acres was that we were talking with the owner about things like workforce housing in combination with commercial development within that general commercial land use area. No one even talked about that. They saw general commercial and thought we were going to build 6,000 feet worth of stores there. We were talking about workforce housing in smaller lot configurations, which we're going to have to do if we're going to support workforce housing. You can't build a house that sells for $150,000 on a half-acre lot. You just can't do it. So we're going to have to deal with some of those things, and I think those are all have to be considerations as we talk about bringing blocks of land into the city. We're landlocked. We can't do that within our general Sebastian Highlands area. It's too late to reconfigure that into workforce housing. So we have to do that through either land acquisition, or we have to let other entities do that. So I think that's pretty much where we would sit with that.
Thanks, Ed. I appreciate that. Bill? Bill?
Yes,
Would you like me to repeat the question?
please.
What metrics will you use to determine what future annexations are in the best interests of the taxpayers of the city?
That's a good question. Partly, I think it has to do with the use of the land itself, as far as the open spaces, the requirement perhaps on our existing infrastructure, also the increase, let's say, in the police force or fire department or all these other areas that are basically for public use, and take those into consideration on some of our acquisitions. And depending upon the size of them, sooner or later, it's going to have an impact on, like I say, the police department, the schools, etc. We have to be prepared, and hopefully we will be. So I think that's going to have an impact also on the consideration of any large annexations. I mean, at this point in time, we still have the spirit of Sebastian that's open, and and also Laurel Reserve and Cross Creek and so forth. So we still have, and I realize one of those areas in particular, you're not going to get the workforce housing, as Ed said. Those opportunities are probably pretty well gone, except I'm not for sure if you could get some in spirit of Sebastian. And that is a large consideration, is workforce housing. Anyhow, that's all I've got to say.
Thanks, Bill. Dianna?
Yes, as far as the annexation goes, or any additional annexation or future annexation, this is where my numbers head kicks in. And really the question, and nobody's really talking about this, is they're saying, I'm hearing over and over again, if nobody else, we need to get it before anybody else does, because nobody else can take care of it as well as we do. Bottom line is, we're not taking care of what we have. And I learned a long time ago that if you're not taking care of what you have, you don't get any more. You need to take care of what you have first. That sounds pretty basic, but that's the way it is. And the fact is, we look around here, we've got crumbling infrastructure. We have some roads that need work on. We've got a stormwater system that needs work on. We're seeing lower revenues over the next few years or the next year or so due to COVID and some economic conditions. So for us to be looking over at greener pastures, oh, we need to grab this, or that it somehow is going to give us a higher tax base. It is not. It's a Ponzi scheme to think that you can rely on annexation of land in order to finance other development outside of that project. You're lucky with impact fees and future tax revenue from what will be developed at a later date to finance some of that infrastructure and the impact that it's going to have on our existing services. So I would like to see somebody show me some numbers where annexing this property is somehow going to bring more income to the city of Sebastian. I mean, numbers are numbers, so let's look at those numbers. And then I've also heard, well, this land that we want to annex, don't worry about it, because it's not going to happen for 10 years. I've heard that from a couple of council members. Well, if it's not going to happen for a couple, 10 years, where's this extra money going to come from for our additional support services that we're going to have to provide, from ditch clearing to municipal services to police and fire departments and things? Where's that money going to come from? What about maintaining those roads? Now that we've added more land to our situation, how are we going to take care of it? And who's going to finance this? Where's the money going to come from?
Thanks, Dianna. We'll go with Bill on this next question. Bill will go first. What's the most important thing City Council can do to help improve the city's relationship with Indian River County?
With Indian River County?
Yes.
I understand there is perhaps a little hostility at this point between the two entities. I don't think we're going to wind up having a mediator, although that might be helpful. But I also think that sitting down and discussing it and analyzing the situation and common sense, that perhaps we can come to a solution that would be a win-win for both parties. I mean, you know, Indian River County, we're a part of Indian River County, of course. So is Fellsmere, so is Vero Beach. And this whole thing is a partnership, and it has to be looked at as a partnership. And each entity has to uphold its end to make the thing work. I don't know, maybe a little more common sense and a little less hostility would help. That's it.
Thank you. Dianna?
How are we going to get along with the county better?
What's your suggestion?
Yes. I think we need to work more together. We are neighbors and we are part of the county. So the county has a lot of talent. My mom has been involved in politics in this area for a long time. She was the co-founder with Jack Fay of the Sebastian Sun, and she was heavily involved in politics here. years ago, and she said, Dianna, you really should work with the county more because the city, they don't have it together, she said. But I disagree. I think the city has a lot of good attributes, and I believe that we need to work more with the county. We need to share resources. We need to share some ideas with them. They have some wonderful ideas. We can also, I think we can do some co-grant writing on some resources that we need to get. But yes, absolutely. Why aren't we getting along? Why don't we try to get along? I don't understand it. I have a whole different approach to it. I believe it's best to be at peace with everybody and to be friendly with everybody, and everybody has something they can bring to the table. We don't need all this animosity.
Thanks, Dianna. Ed, what is the most important thing City Council can do to help improve the city's relationship with Indian River County?
Well, I mean, we just have to talk to each other, and we have to talk to each other at the elected official level first. I am pushing, trying to work through with the county commissioners and the city of Sebastian, trying to work through some types of objective documents where we can establish objectives that we would like to accomplish jointly, and try to get our staff then to work together on that process. I don't see any real reason why we don't communicate with each other better. I think there's a lot of territorial issues that come about. A lot of that has to do with the fact that the Indian River County has certain objectives that they've established that they want to accomplish. They see that some of the things that we want to accomplish might be not in line with those. And the first thing we need to do is to sit down and just talk about what those things are. If we understood the things that we weren't providing support on, then it might not be a big problem for us to provide support on those, and vice versa. So I'm an advocate of us working as the elected officials first. It has to start with the elected officials. I go back to the age-old time where I worked in business world, and when someone was trying to do something like a merger or an acquisition, the common theme was principals had to talk first before the staff talked. So we need to get together as elected officials and work our way through that. We can do that through workshops. We can do that through one-on-one conversations between maybe between a selected member of the city council and a selected member of the county commission, first of all. But I think we need to do that at that level. I'm 100% in favor of trying to get past whatever this rift is that everybody perceives exists between the county and the city. I don't think that their objection to our annexation was a rift. I think that was just their opinion about what we were doing. And we need to get past this perception that there is a rift between the two bodies.
Thanks, Ed. We'll go with Dianna first on this next question. And this is the last one I have. And then when we're done with this, you'll have an opportunity to give us anything that we missed or any summary statement kind of thing. So Dianna, under what circumstances would you consider voting for an ordinance that would require the public to wear masks inside city facilities and inside businesses, where public-facing employees also would have to wear them?
Okay, so the question is, when would I be in favor of voting for an ordinance where we would be required to wear masks, including the police?
Let me repeat the question. Under what circumstances would you consider voting for an ordinance that would require the public to wear masks inside city facilities and inside businesses, where public-facing employees also would have to wear them?
I would vote against it.
Okay.
I can't think of an instance where I think it should be left up to the individual. If they're immune compromised, they should wear a mask. If they're afraid or sick, they should stay home. These are common sense. If you're healthy, you don't quarantine the healthy. I believe right now everybody should live and let live. No, we shouldn't be passing around plague. If we have a plague and it's provable, then if people are sick, they should not be infecting other people. Plain and simple. For the same reasons you don't like sitting in an emergency room watching, you know, when I'm in an emergency room, I get a little nervous because I know there's a lot of germs passing around. that would be a good time to wear a mask. Even then, it's voluntary. But I would not be in favor of mandatory masking. No, only on a choice by choice basis, or where somebody is sick, they should be removed, or they should be masked, or they should stay home.
Thank you, Diana. Ed, you're
I've
next.
already voted for that.
Yes, you have.
Sebastian has that policy into effect today. Under the Sebastian policy that's into effect today, if you're inside a building, the city building or any other building, you're required to wear a mask. If you're an employee, now the business themselves, we gave them the right to forego that. So I mean, we told the businesses we would support their requiring all customers to wear masks, but they could forego that. And a lot of the businesses are foregoing that, especially the bars. But I've already voted for that. There's a mandatory, if you're an employee in a business in the city of Sebastian and you're not able to completely social distance, which waitresses cannot, bartenders cannot, clerks cannot, you're required to wear a mask. It is absolutely too late when you get symptomatic for you to decide that you're going to wear a mask because you've already spent 3 to 5 days infecting people. That's a scientific fact. There is so much empirical evidence that the reason we have such a large problem in this country today is because as a society we refuse to do social distancing and wear masks. And I'm not a person who believes in taking away people's personal liberty. I just believe that quite frankly, that anybody who refuses to wear a mask because they think it infringes on their personal liberty doesn't really care a whole lot about my liberty. And I have the right not to be infected by them. So that's the reason that I would support that.
Thank you, Ed. Bill?
I think as we currently have it, as far as I know, all the municipal buildings, certainly in Sebastian, require a mask being worn. Also, I think it's up to the discretion or up to the business owners as to whether or not they require it from their customers. I do agree that the employees, regardless of where it's a city, county, or whether it's business, that the employees should wear the mask. But I think it should be optional for the customers. If the company or the business requires their customers to wear a mask, I think that should be honored. That's my take on it.
Thank you, Bill. We'll go in this order at the end here. We'll go with Ed, Bill, and then Diana. But final question would be, basically, is there anything that you'd like to talk about that we missed? Anything else you'd like us to know? We'll start that off with Ed.
Okay, I've been on the council for 4 years now. It'll be 4 years in November. Prior to that time, I spent about 12 years doing kind of like an apprenticeship program on various committees within the city. I'm very knowledgeable about the activities that take place in the city, about the stuff, the requirements, what it takes to get things done. I've worked through a lot of processes, especially with some of the spraying stuff and some of the other stuff, where people wanted there to be extremely fast action, and I could understand that and sympathize with it, but I knew that politically that was not going to happen. And I worked through that with a council. I was able to convince the council, who was not really selective to do that 2 years ago, to begin the process of trying to create this best management practices plan. I've worked with the council on getting them to agree to let the city manager or to request that the city manager do the new stormwater plan and to look at the canals, which is part of what he's doing. He's actually producing a plan that's going to involve redoing the whole canal system. Another major project that's going to take a long time to do. So I work well within that environment. I think I can get things done, and I think I listen well. A lot of people don't believe that, but I do. I managed to survive the last 9 months, which were quite traumatic. And I'm not saying that because of the recall. I'm just saying that if anybody watched our council meetings, they were quite traumatic. And I think I can continue to do that for the next 2 years.
Thank you, Ed. I appreciate that. Bill, anything that you'd like to let us know? Any other issues that we missed?
Well, I was going to say something to Diane. I think we both read the same. When is it okay to annex property? That was referred to in one of the TCPalm articles. At any rate, I think we've pretty well covered a number of the issues. I think we have one item left in Sebastian, which is to close out the budget for the coming fiscal year. In fact, Ed and I have shared. We were on the code enforcement board for a short time together, and also on planning and zoning for a while together. And I have a lot of respect for Ed. Anyhow, I've been on the planning and zoning commission from 04 to 11, and again from 1st of 17 until current. So I feel that I have a fair idea for some of the issues facing Sebastian. I've been here for 20 years. I did some research on the Treasure Coast and wound up choosing Sebastian, which I think made the best choice that could be made. I have a background in finance. I worked for a CPA firm for a while earlier in my career. I do pretty well understand the financing part of it. And that's about it. I'm retired. I have the time to do the research. I have to have the time to do whatever it takes to do the job and to do it correctly, and to keep the citizens of Sebastian involved. In fact, I wish they would be more involved in what they have been. And I think perhaps what's happened over the last several months might induce them to participate in some of the workshops and some of the meetings. I like the flavor of Sebastian, and moving here 20 years ago was, other than marrying my wife, the best decision I've made. That's it.
Thanks, Bill. And finally, Diana, anything we missed? Anything you'd like to summarize on?
Yes. And I agree with Bill as far as this is one of the best decisions to make, to retire here in Sebastian. I was asked to run for city council by several people, phone calls, people I met in the park, people when I gave the talk to different groups, and with phone calls and letters. And like Bill said, we need more people engaged in the process, and we need to get along. It has been chaotic. It's kind of read like a either good or bad Carl Hiaasen novel, depending on how you look at it. In fact, Carl should come here and write a book about this. But I think that we have looking forward. What we need to do is look forward, and there are a lot of wonderful things coming down the pike. I don't think that we should be continually yammering about the past. We can learn from it, but we need to move forward, and we need to look ahead with positivity. And there are a lot of people that don't feel like they have a voice here. They feel like there's been a toxic environment where they were shut down or treated rudely when they did go to city council meetings. That needs to come to an end. We need to welcome everybody. Everybody's got good input. Everyone has something to contribute. Some of us are a little crazy. Some of us are a little more crazy than others. But these are good people, and we need to look forward. There's so much we can do. I could tell you, like, for example, marine issues. I'm really big on that. I want to see us. We're going to be more on the map, being on the Intercoastal Waterway. We want to take care of some pollution issues there and establish some mooring fields and pump out facilities. I have a lot of friends, and I'm very connected with the marine industry. Coming down our waterway, we'd like to see them stop off and this be known as a voter-friendly community where they can stop and enjoy our restaurants and bars and dinghy in and have a nice day or two in Sebastian, and then carry on down the waterway. It's a really good thing for a city to be able to have tourists come in, spend their money, and leave. So we want to see more of that. We want good, clean ecotourism. So I'm glad to be here. I appreciate the opportunity. If anybody has any questions, they know how to reach me. And I really appreciate this opportunity here today with TCPalm. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Bill, Diana, and Ed for taking the time with us today and for taking the time with the viewers that we had today and that will watch this again on TCPalm over the next several weeks before the election. Thanks for your insight. Thanks for taking the time to run and represent the citizens of your community. It's not an easy job, as some of you have found out in the past. So thank you. For more information on the election, you can go to tcpalm.com/elections. Again, thank you, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you
Thank you,
very
Larry.
much.
Thank you.
Thank